Good morning and welcome back to Mobility Matters. I'm your host, Javier Betancourt, Executive Director of the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust, or CITT. We're the independent agency of Miami-Dade County charged with overseeing your half-penny sales tax for transportation and the implementation of the People's Transportation Plan. Those are the projects that half-penny is helping to invest in and to build projects. So one of our key partners in transportation is, of course, the Florida Department of Transportation, FDOT. They, of course, own and operate many of our major highways and arterial roads, and are also even investing in many of our transit projects. So I'm really excited to have a couple of guests on the program today from FDOT District 6. We have Ray and we have Francisco, and I'll let you introduce yourselves and your full names and what you do. So Ray, let's start with you.
Sure. My name is Raymond Valido. I do go by Ray. I have the pleasure of serving as a District 6 District Roadway Design Engineer. What does that mean? I wear two primary hats, right? So one of them is as a technical expert in roadway design. The second one is that I oversee what we call our internal design team, which is a production team of roadway engineers and traffic engineers, as well as CAD, which is our computer-aided drafting professionals. So I have the pleasure of being able to do that and involve myself in a lot of the state highway design projects.
Great. Thank you and welcome to the program.
Thank you for having us.
Francisco?
Good morning. My name is Francisco Lledo. I'm a construction project manager in the South Dade Residency, District 6 as well. Basically, my role is to lead a team of project administrators and field inspectors. Basically, all of these roles, all of these people basically are in charge of making sure that the projects, DOT projects, are built according to the plans that are provided during the bid, and also we enforce the specifications of FDOT, either material testing, standards, anything that is applicable in the contract, and we just make sure that all of that is implemented according to our specs. And basically, it's from CSS. There's several positions that are involved in a construction project, but the most important thing I would say is project administrators and the field inspectors.
Great. So you dream it up, you design it, you put it on paper, you give it to him, he builds it.
Absolutely.
Suffice it to say, right?
Yes.
And then we all get to enjoy it. So I know you've worked on a variety of projects in your career at FDOT, but one in particular that I think we're excited to talk about today is a roundabout.
Yes.
And so tell us about this particular roundabout, why it's so exciting to FDOT, and let's also tell people where it's at.
Sure.
Start there.
So this roundabout, so I'll start by saying it's the first roundabout on the District 6 state highway system. So that's of great pride to us, where we're finally able to use one of these innovative intersection concepts. Why it's exciting for us? Number one, it's a roundabout, right? FHWA has a number of statistics that show that roundabouts are safer and improve mobility. Our team worked on it from 2013, where we received a citizen request to look at this particular intersection. And little by little, we studied it through our traffic operations study. We studied it through our planning office. It got to my office in the design office, where we worked on it through an expedited schedule. And ultimately, we got it to Francisco and his team to be able to construct it. One of the great things about—
I'm sorry, where is it at?
Oh, sorry. I completely missed that portion of the question. So this is Roadway and 15th Road. So Roadway, 15th Road, and 3rd Avenue. Okay. So this is right after I-95. So I-95, Roadway, right where you cross under I-95 is immediately to the east.
Just as it transitions into Brickell, basically.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of the things that we take great pride on this project is that it was mostly done by in-house staff, right? So actual DOT staff on the design team were able to work on this project. So our team all in-house, our engineer of records, we're all in-house staff, as well as our construction staff, we're all in-house staff. So that's not something that we typically see in a lot of our infrastructure projects in DOT. We rely a lot on our consultant industry, but this is a unique project. So that's another reason why we take a lot of pride
for FDOT.
A lot of pride in that.
That's great. And I know you have great people there. So you're capable of doing the work. Sometimes you just have more work than you're able to manage internally, right? Yeah. And so tell me when this project began and then when it opened.
Sure. So I'll start with when it began to when it opened, right? So 2013, citizen request. Around 2016, we were doing a planning study. 2019, we began design and finished design in 2022. Handed it off to you guys. What was your schedule?
Yeah, I think we started, if I remember correctly, we started around October. And we were pretty much done by March. So basically, we estimated like 250 days.
That was October 22, right?
Yes.
For actual construction, right?
And we ended spending only 220 days to complete the whole project. And also, I think we did a great job estimating the amount of money. The budget was estimated in 2.7, and we ended spending exactly $2.7 million.
So not on time, actually, under time,
Under time.
and on budget.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's great. I love FDOT.
Yes.
So you said the construction actually was fairly quick,
Yes.
but the whole process took nearly 10 years. Is that
Yes.
because this was your first one, or is that the typical timeline that it takes to do something like this?
So it's when we have such a large infrastructure project, then it typically does take a timeline like this, right? So typically we have, on the planning side, we'll have planning studies or PD&E studies, which are project development and environmental studies that do take time to make sure that we are looking forward, that we are looking ahead to make sure that we're addressing not just the community's needs today, but the community's needs 20, 40 years from now. So part of that was making sure that before we even got it to our designers to really put pencil to paper, right? And before we got it to construction, we wanted to make sure that what we proposed was appropriate, right? So typically we received a lot of requests from our citizens, and we address all of those requests through our traffic operations office, right? And that takes a little bit of time as we analyze data, we analyze crash history. When we saw that we did have an inherent problem in this particular intersection, that there was value in improving it, that's where we had to start making sure not only that we can do it, but when we can fund it, right? And that was a lot of the challenge also, is making sure that we had the money in place to be able to construct this, right? Because it wasn't a project that we had planned originally in our work program. Yeah. And our work program is 5 years, budgeted out to make sure that, we have a plan in place. So it took us a little bit to make sure that, we received our community support. We didn't want to put a project on our work program that the community didn't support. So we had to get that community support. Once we received the community support, then we went ahead and said, okay, let's add it to our work program, make sure that we go through all of our regular processes, whether in this particular project pursuing right-of-way, our permits, et cetera, so that we can have a successful project. So typically there's a lot of moving parts to make sure before we even get $1 in place for this project. So that upfront portion made sure that we were set in the right path to be able to accomplish it.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts on the front end.
Yes.
And then once you're ready for construction, there's a lot of moving parts, right? You have to ensure that traffic continues to flow, that it's safe.
Exactly.
Basically what we call maintenance of traffic. So what was that experience like in that area? Because it's such a busy area, right?
You think right now you have 2 lanes, right? We reduced everything to 1 lane, and we were diverging traffic in one of our phases, right? We basically envisioned during design to piece the construction in 4 different phases. One was to build half of the roundabout, then jump to the other half, and then the 15 and the side streets around the roundabout, right? It's a challenge because you as a pedestrian, you want to go to, I don't know, you want to go to Publix, you always take the same route, right?
Yeah. Shortest distance possible,
exactly.
Right? Especially in this heat.
Pedestrians are used to get the same walking path usually, right? So people needs to get used to new detours, and you gotta implement them. And people sometimes they don't quite understand the detour, so we gotta make sure that our signs, our TCP is implemented as per plan, because we anticipate all of those kind of needs during design. And same thing goes for traffic, right? We in this case, traffic, during construction, what we'd like to do is just take before construction, we like to take travel times to see or evaluate how during construction traffic is affected, right? So before we touch or we break ground, we like to monitor from A to B how much time it's gonna get us, right? It's gonna take us to get from A to B, and after or during construction, how much from that A to B, how much time is gonna take us to get there too. So basically, we're trying to adjust the MOD. If we see there's a big impact, we try to adjust the MOD to make some changes to be able to have traffic flowing, better. Same goes for pedestrians. And this particular project had 2 schools that were recently opened, I think slightly before construction. Oh. So there was a lot of pedestrians, I think, in the area. So you gotta pay special attention and keep your MOT in place every day, every morning. It's fundamental in a construction project.
Yeah, people think it's so simple. Hey, let's just throw a circle in the middle of an intersection. Well, no, there's a lot that goes into this, correct, both on the back end, during construction, and then even afterwards. So you did the traffic counts, and presumably you've done traffic counts since it's opened up to evaluate, its success. And what are you finding? Is it meeting with your expectations? Is it underperforming, overperforming? Where are we?
I actually don't have the data on the traffic counts. One of the things that we did do is we committed to analyze it from a safety study, right? Okay. Because we did have an idea of what our level of service is, which is a function of how much time it takes somebody to get from a place, right? And similar to school, it's graded on an A to F scale, with A being the best and F being the worst. Right, the existing level of service prior to building the roundabout at this unsignalized intersection was a level of service F, and I'm actually going to refer to this. It was about a 338-second delay through this particular area. as modeled, right, we were actually expecting to get a level service A with a 10-second delay, right? We haven't gone back and I don't think we've gone back to actually do comparative analysis to see what the actual level of service is. But I typically like to tell folks, right, if we're not hearing from anybody immediately after construction, it's typically good news, right? We tend to hear when there's a particular problem. We have our folks out there who are monitoring it after construction. We're actively monitoring it from a safety standpoint to see if there's anything that we have to do. But typically what we like to do is we like to wait about 3 years, make sure it settles in, make sure our Miami drivers understand how to use this roundabout. People come back to the roundabout. So it's something that we do have in our books to make sure that we analyze 2 years from now.
That's a good point, because during construction, I'm sure people adapted and found other routes and maybe aren't even aware that this is completed and haven't really kind of found a way back, right? But conceptually, roundabouts are supposed to increase the efficiency of the intersection, allow more people to get through. Is that correct? I mean, that's kind of the point.
Correct.
And how does that work? Why is it that it's more efficient? Is it because people don't have to stop? I mean, what is the magic behind a roundabout?
So I can start and Fran can probably share some of his findings as well, right? So the roundabout in concept is, let's say if you had a signalized intersection, you have your regular mast arms, right, that tell you, hey, you need to stop here and wait because somebody else is crossing, right? In a roundabout, everybody has the opportunity to go, right? You just have to find your queue acceptance, right, when you're allowed into that roundabout. So there's actually no actual signal, and that's a different topic that we can get into because this roundabout is actually metered, but there's actually no signal on roundabouts typically that tell you you need to stop. You can't go into this particular area. You're free to go within the roundabout, right? And you're able to make any movement, whether it be a left turn, right turn, or a through movement without actually stopping. At a signalized intersection, if I needed to make a left turn, I need to wait for my light, or I need to be able to see oncoming traffic and be able to make the left. So I'm inherently waiting, right? In the roundabout, it allows us to kind of move free flow, right, without introducing that signal that's making you stop for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever it may be, right? So from that standpoint, it's extremely effective. From a safety standpoint as well, roundabouts lowers vehicle speeds, right? So inherently what we're looking for is drivers enter a roundabout and they say, okay, it's a little bit different. I need to slow down. We're creating enclosure, making it a little bit tighter, and we're getting drivers to be a little bit more active while they're driving through the roundabout. Because we're lowering speeds and drivers are a little bit more active, we inherently reduce the number of serious injury, crashes, and fatalities. So it's a huge benefit from a safety standpoint to have a roundabout, because by lowering speeds, we lower the severity. So those are the two main things, right? It improves your overall efficiency as well as it improves safety.
And does this particular roundabout have anything in the center, some landscaping? Or
Yes, it has like a figure that goes around, and it's a big circle that is closing towards a tree in the middle.
Okay. Almost like a artwork, or would you say?
It's like a spiral.
Yes, spiral. Okay. Yes.
If you fly a drone, you can see it from the top.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I would say another the features that we considered during designing and that we kept a close eye on, it's an existing bike lane along Roadway. So as you know, you cannot put a bike lane through a roundabout, right? So in this project, what we did is a shared path. Right now, it's almost a minimum of 10 feet, even more wide. So you can right now ride your bike on that concrete area, right now under the area under I-95. So we accounted for that too. Also, during the MOT phase, we accounted for though we made adjustment to keep that bike lane on service the whole time. So those are, as I said before, those little adjustments that you do to the MOT. And talking about the benefits, I saw a lot of benefits because of the schools. It's a small alley next to the roundabout that gets direct access to one of these schools, and you could see all people using those crosswalks that were signalized, and that was a great feature to add in a project. Signalizing this intersection was, especially with the demand of pedestrians that it has, it was a great success in my opinion.
It's great to hear about the path, because I know that a lot of cyclists don't like roundabouts. They don't feel safe in them. I've never had a problem. I used to commute to work by bike and never felt particularly unsafe, but some people do. So that's great to hear that there's this multi-use path. How does that work? It just kind of encircles it on the outside?
We transition the existing bike lane along Roadway towards the sidewalk, and it's a shared path. It's
just feet. Wider, and
we did it. Originally, it was 10 feet, but I think we did it wider.
We did it wide.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, and then it ties in with the other side of the.
And that's working well. You see people using it without a problem.
Yeah, and to Francisco's point, right? I'd say roundabouts typically aren't signalized. We decided to do a concept called metering this roundabout because of the adjacent intersection. It also helped the second benefit of it was that I helped pedestrians, right? Because in a roundabout, typically you're waiting for a vehicle to see you, give you the right of way, and then you cross, right? You don't typically have a pedestrian signal telling you to cross because it's typically a free flow movement. Because we had to meter and signalize this roundabout because of an adjacent intersection, we were able to have pedestrian signalization where when you press your pedestrian push button to cross, drivers actually get a red. Okay. So you're not actually waiting to make eye contact with that driver and say, hey, can I cross? No, they actually have a physical red that they're stopping for you. So that's one of the unique benefits, I think, that was of extreme value in this area that's high pedestrian, high density. Yeah. So for bicyclists, we're able to make sure that they have a path, but for pedestrians as well, we're able to signalize their movements.
And that's interesting because I don't think I've seen that in any other roundabout or traffic circle, Miami-Dade County. I mean, these are proliferating right throughout the county. Yes. I know this city in South Miami, but many cities have them. They're popping up everywhere, and they seem to be very popular. But that is a unique feature, I believe. Yeah,
it's extremely unique. I believe so. For us in design, it was one of our biggest challenges because we told you it's the first roundabout in the state highway system. Yeah. We decided to go big, right? We said, let's go ahead and actually meter this, right? But there was a reason for this. One of the issues with roundabouts, since we do have free flow, is that we have to make sure that it's far enough away from adjacent signalized intersections, right? We don't want backups from adjacent intersections to be able to kind of come into the roundabout. Since we were so close to Second Avenue, right? We were only about 500 feet from Second Avenue. We knew that during morning peak periods that we may have some queuing. So we added loops on the pavement, which are inductive. They identify when there's a vehicle there. And basically, when there's a vehicle that's getting too close to the roundabout, when you're backing up, it turns the light red for the approach, right? So to make sure that you still have continuity in the roundabout for the other approaches.
Otherwise, it just kind of locks in.
If it wasn't for that, we probably wouldn't have signalized it. But by needing to address the traffic operation needs, we were able to also address a pedestrian need that we typically don't see on a roundabout. And it's been working pretty successful, right?
And I wanna kind of add that Miami-Dade County, we partnership with them. Miami-Dade Traffic Signal Division is the one maintaining DOT intersection, so they help us programming the controller to be able to have all these movements. They provided the SOP, they programmed the controller, so they were really helpful.
Is this kind of considered a smart signal, part of the advanced traffic management system, or is this just a fairly simple operation?
No, I think it's
No, my understanding is that the original SOP that we had to be tweaked several times. Miami-Dade County just stepped in and provided the controller with all the settings. We had to modify our SOP, the original SOP in our plans, but it worked beautiful.
Yeah. But I don't think it's part of their ATMS program as of yet or things of that. So it does have its intelligent features and some out of the toolbox kind of ideas, but it wasn't necessarily a smart intersection for
another subject for another day. We'll talk about ATMS in the future. So here's a stupid question, but I think it's one that maybe other people have. What is the difference between a roundabout and a traffic circle, or are they just synonyms for one another?
I can so roundabout typically have a larger, what we call inscribed diameter, which is basically the size of the circle. Typically, you'll see circles on more residential neighborhoods, really, that instead of making it a four-way stop, we'll add a little circle in there, be able to get people to kind of go around. It's typically a one lane. Modern roundabouts have a lot more features to them. Typically, they can be single lane, but they allow for a much larger radius, accommodate larger trucks. They have a number of different things. They can be spiral roundabouts, which is addition and removal of lanes. So typically we want a certain diameter and a certain radius size of the circle to make sure that we induce a certain vehicular speed that we want. And that's kind of inherent in the modern roundabouts, right? Is that we're not telling people you have to drive 25 miles per hour. We're designing to make sure that people drive 25 miles per hour. And that's what really a modern roundabout makes sure that we do, make sure that we design it to make sure that we get the behavior that we want.
And they're not always circles from what I've seen. I mean, they typically are, but I've seen some that look like amoebas, like the one in Coconut Grove. I guess it all depends on the context.
Yes. Yep. We have some right-of-way constraints in this project. It's an existing building. So you can see an aerial of the roundabout is not a complete circle. You have to modify a little bit the design. And DOT right-of-way also acquires some of the property on the northwest corner of 3rd Avenue to be able to accommodate the roundabout. So this, as we said before, there's a lot of moving parts in DOT design. Our folks from traffic operations, right away, maintenance, all of them are part of the FDOT engine that puts everything together.
And it sounds like everyone seems happy with this result. And so are you looking to do this now and emulate it in other locations throughout the county?
So one of the tools that we have in our toolbox, and DOT loves its acronyms, it's ICE. It's Intersection Control Evaluation, right? So whenever we have a new intersection that we're going from unsignalized intersection to any type of intersection, we do an evaluation, right, where we'll consider a number of different innovative concepts. The roundabout is a tool in our toolbox, but to Francisco's point, the roundabouts do require a lot of right-of-way, right? So we definitely want to make sure that we're evaluating locations, but making sure that we make a decision that's right for the location, right? Roundabouts also have are very sensitive to directional traffic. If you have too much volume coming from one direction, you kind of impact everybody else on the other direction. So
it doesn't work everywhere.
It doesn't work everywhere. It is a tool in our toolbox that we continue to evaluate whenever we have a new intersection that we're proposing. Right now, we don't have any plans within District 6 to add anywhere else, but we're actively evaluating to make sure when it is a solution that we do propose it.
Okay, and you kind of touched on, traffic coming from different directions and how that works operationally. So let's get into the operational for a second. Miami has some interesting drivers. Not always aware of, how things are supposed to work. And certainly introducing new concepts like traffic circles and roundabouts sometimes confuse people because it operates very differently than your typical four-way stop or a signalized intersection, right? I know when you come to a four-way stop, you're supposed to yield to your right. That's not necessarily the case in a roundabout, right? So how are people supposed to actually approach a roundabout and maneuver through it? What are the general rules of the road?
DOT has, you go to YouTube and you just put roundabout FDOT. It has a video where it shows you how to navigate a roundabout.
Oh, great.
What we did also during construction before completely opening the roundabout, we release our community outreach specialists, release information as how to navigate the roundabout. Because remember, we're accustomed to driving in a certain way. Right now we have a circle and we gotta where do I have to put my car? On the inner lane, if I gotta travel northbound 3rd Avenue, I gotta be on the outside, although we have signs indicating way ahead of a decision point where you gotta see to locate your vehicle. Still, we thought it was important to release that information. And then you wanna right now, I think still up the video. You can still go there in YouTube and find a way to navigate this type of roundabouts.
So those 3 E's, right? So engineering, enforcement, and education, right? So we knew that the education campaign on this was equally important. So our PIO partners made sure that while we were getting ready to finalize construction, we were educating the public. And while typical to any construction project, folks are getting used to it, so there may be a small increase in crashes at the beginning. Once they do get acclimated and they know how to use it, it tends to get a lot better, right? But overall, inside circulatory roadway, so the inside if you're inside the circle, you have a right of way. Everybody else outside of that has to yield and then find their gap inside the roundabout.
Right. So as a public service announcement for my fellow drivers out there, you do not, unless there's a red signal, you don't have to stop. If there's no one in the circle, keep going. In fact, someone might hit you from behind if you stop abruptly. You yield to your left, not to your right, obviously. That should be obvious. And the other thing that drives me nuts is if you're in the circle, you're supposed to keep going. You're not supposed to yield to necessarily incoming traffic. They're supposed to yield to you.
Correct.
And sometimes people want to be nice and they want to let people in, but then that just creates an issue behind them. An unsafe condition even, right? So please follow the rules of the road. Check out the video on FDOT's YouTube webpage. So gentlemen, we jumped straight into what you do. We didn't talk about you. So tell us a little bit about yourselves, your background, how you got into engineering and construction and ended up at FDOT. We'll start with you, Ray.
So how I got into engineering, how I picked engineering, my grandfather always had a small construction company. My summers weren't necessarily summer camps. It was spending a lot of time with my grandfather. So
work camps.
So I liked infrastructure, right? And I said, am I going to do architecture, engineering? And I ultimately ended up with engineering. So I studied at FIU, graduated a bachelor's degree in civil engineering, and also have a master's degree in engineering management. My career did start at FDOT. I started in a program called the PE training program. It's a professional engineer training program, which is an excellent program that kind of builds you technically and professionally for future leadership roles. So I spent 6 years with DOT working through the professional engineer training program, ultimately ended up as a project engineer in design. And at that point, I decided to take a step away and I took a role as a consultant for 5 years working as a project manager for a local consulting design firm, doing almost the same exact work that I was doing, just in a different capacity. There, I was a project manager on design bid build, contracts for FDOT District 6, FDOT District 4, Turnpike, City of Miami, Miami-Dade County. So I was able to get exposed to a lot of different clients. I had a yearning to come back to DOT. So after 5 years as a consultant, I came back to DOT also in the same group that I was previously at. So I came back as a project manager in design. a year after that, I was fortunate enough to be promoted into the role that I am at today. So overall, a little bit over 11 years, both in the DOT, private sector, as well as public sector.
Great. How about you, Francisco?
Well, I started working with the department almost 8 years ago, 8 years, 4 months. I'm a chemical engineer. I have a master in chemical engineer. Yeah, my dad told me to, hey, you gotta study civil engineering, and you know those phases kids go through. And I decided, no, I'm not gonna go with chemical. Anyways, so turned out working with my dad, he had a construction company, and then we moved.
You guys brothers?
No.
Just coincidentally.
Coincidentally.
Yeah. Then we moved here to the States and started working with DOT like almost 8.5 years, more or less. Yes. And my role, I started as a project administrator, dealing with push button contracts, and from there I moved up to project oversight, bigger projects, more triple-R projects, ride-only projects. From there I moved up to a project manager, construction project manager, and getting involved in different type of projects. Manager for ITS contract, push buttons, triple-R, concrete rehabilitation right now. You get exposed to a lot of different type of projects. It is not just roadway or asphalt. It's just traffic signal, ITS, landscape, drainage, all the whole deal, basically. And I'm happy. I'm super happy to work in DOT. It's a very nice place to work.
No, it comes across. You guys are the happiest engineers I've ever met, and engineers are good people by and large. But it just goes to show that FDOT is, and I've always heard this, that it's a great place to work. And that program that you came up through, every engineer I think I've met, in Miami has gone through that program and really speaks well to it about it. And so, if you're interested in becoming an engineer, get your start at FDOT. You can make a career out of it, and you could be a happy engineer as well. Like, look at these guys; they're nothing but smiles. Gentlemen, we're out of time, so I want to thank you for everything you're doing on behalf of our community, and I want to thank you for being a guest on our program. Thank you
for having us.
Appreciate it. Folks, that's all the time we have here on Mobility Matters. So we welcome you back every other Thursday from 9 to 10 a.m. As you see, we have a wide variety of interesting guests that you can enjoy and learn from. We do encourage you to visit YouTube and learn the rules of the road in roundabouts and traffic circles to make all of our lives safer and easier. And we also invite you to visit our website, miamidade.gov/CITT, to learn more about what we do at the CITT and what's happening with your half-penny sales tax for transportation. Finally, I want to thank our partners in this endeavor here at Miami's Community Newspapers for continuing to host and produce this program. Thank you and have a great day.